What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Superdraft Breakdown Show here on Rotogrinders. I'm Turd Ferguson, and I'm giving you some of my favorite plays over on Superdraft. I haven't signed up for you yet. Making bad life choices. Sign up using the promo code Grinders. They will match your deposit bonus if you deposit 150. Give you 150 bucks if you deposit 150 or more. Or if you don't have that kind of bankroll, deposit up to $50 and they'll match it 100%. It's not one of those drip deposits. It's just Superdraft cash, which means play through it once and it is yours to keep. It's that simple. So no worry about having to play a large amount of money in order to get that deposit bonus. You can figure out if you like the site or not, just playing through that deposit bonus once. Get in, get out if you really want to, but highly suggest sticking around. It's an absolutely fantastic site. My favorite site out there. I play a ton on it. I play every single night. There's overlay. There's a unique game style format. And I'm going to be giving you all the picks here multiple times a week. Generally, I have shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I'm going to be telling you exactly what to do. Baseball season's coming up. Absolutely fantastic product for baseball. My favorite of the three sports over on Superdraft is actually baseball. So tons of stuff. They got a partnership with Caesars Entertainment. Yes, that's the same Caesars Entertainment that brought you Caesars Palace over in Vegas. So you're going to be earning some player points over at Caesars Palace. I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping to get 7-star status so I can get free hotel rooms all across the U.S. at their 48 locations, I believe, or 44. I don't know, 40 something, but lots of them. So best place to play, in my opinion. Best site, in my opinion. Get signed up using that promo code Grinders, and I'm going to break it down if you haven't played before. They have 3 guards, 3 forwards, 1 center. We're going to start off with the center position, and it's all based on a multiplier format. That means that whatever they end up getting, multiply it by the multiplier, and that's how many points they end up getting. So Sabonis, for instance, 1.25x multiplier. If he gets 40 points, then on Superdraft, he gets 50 points because you multiply the 40 points times 1.25, and boom, you're at 50. Similar scoring format to both DraftKings and FanDuel. 3 points for block, 3 points for a steal, minus 1 point for a turnover, just like FanDuel. 3.5 points for a three-pointer, 1.5 points for an assist, 1.25 for a rebound, and the triple-double and double-double bonus, just like over on DraftKings. So a little bit of a mix of both. Definitely really like the scoring there because the 3 points for blocks and steals and the 3.5 points for three-pointers gives a lot more volatility, a lot more range of outcomes, especially on those high multiplier guys. Guys like Robert Williams, for instance, if he ends up getting 26, 27 minutes of run, he can get 7 or 8 stocks. Like it can happen in a 1.65x multiplier. 7 or 8 stocks before the multiplier is 21 to 24 points. Multiply that by 1.65. He's at 40 points just from that. Doesn't include the double-double he could potentially get. Doesn't include the points or the rebounds or the assists that he gets. So it's really an interesting way to do it, especially with this multiplier thing, because you can get a huge advantage in tournaments on a lot of these guys. We're starting off with the main guys right from the get-go, and we see Zubac out here. This is just RG projections. RG projections multiplied by the multiplier. We have the median, floor, and ceiling, and we see that Zubac is the top guy on the entire slate at the center position in terms of median projected outcome. Like we've seen him put up 32, 35 points on a consistent basis when he's playing 30-plus minutes without Ibaka in here. Expect him to play that again. Can end up with more points than that, but this is his median projection, 56, meaning that he's projected to be around 31 points median projection against Atlanta. I mean, obviously they have Collins playing a lot more. Capella's in there. Might steal a little bit of rebounds from him, but he still offers you a lot of upside. We see ceiling outcomes. That's his 80th percentile outcome, meaning 80% of the time he'll score less than this, but his ceiling is 80 points. So absolutely through the roof. I'm still not sure if I'm going to end up using him in cash. Still have a little ways to go. There are some guys that I could end up using in cash instead, but as you can see, some guys are highlighted in blue. Some guys are highlighted in green. Blue is cash game core. Green is GBP core. If you guys got any questions, go ahead and drop in the chat, and I'll get through them throughout the show. Pretty free-flowing show here. I'm just going to break down exactly what thoughts are going on in my head for today's slate. Like Zubac, very much going to play him a decent amount of tournaments. Offers you a ton of upside. Kind of dependent on playing a bunch of minutes, but he can get it done in those minutes. So the fact that Serge is out, I expect 30 to 35 minutes if this game stays close from Zubac. Not quite a point per minute guy, but pretty darn close. So if he's playing those minutes, then 1.8x multiplier gives you a massive ceiling. May end up on him in cash. It all depends on what opens up later on in the day. But right now, 1.8x multiplier, guy that's going to be in my GVP core for sure. Valanciunas, second guy that ends up popping off here. I need to sort this again. I don't know why it's not sorted. But Valanciunas, 1.35x multiplier is a little bit low. Like, not sure I fully trust his minutes. Obviously, match versus Boston without Kemba in there. Like, they're still a tough defensive team, but he's a guy that can end up with 50, 60 points in any given matchup. So I'll use a bit of him, mostly in Boston stacks. Boston's currently a fairly close spread for this game, even without Kemba there. I feel like they should probably be favored. Last I checked, they were 2.5-point dogs. So I'm expecting this game to be close. Gobert sitting here at 1.3x multiplier. Don't have him highlighted because I'm not sure if he's going to play. He's currently listed questionable. We'll get the injury report here in an hour, know a little bit more, but as of right now, Gobert is fine. It's matched for Chicago. It's a decent matchup. He always has a pretty high ceiling, but not standing out as one of the top plays. It's pretty much Sabonis, who has a huge ceiling. He's had an 80-point game so far this season. He's had a 60-point game. He's had multiple 40-point games, which aren't going to kill you, but he's a guy that can end up crushing any given matchup. It's a fast-paced matchup versus Milwaukee. Not the same defensive team without Giannis in there, who's currently listed as doubtful and determining a lot of things on this slate. So Sabonis, probably the center I'll end up using cash, but he's also forward eligible, so there's a chance I may end up using Zubac in cash at my center position. But for sure, tournaments, them and Cat are like my main core. Cat has been playing very good recently, offers you a big ceiling, both forward and center eligible. Don't like the multiplier as much at 1.1, but still offers you a bit of upside. Looking outside of that, like I said, Valanciunas, probably not a guy I'll end up going with too much. Robert Williams, I will play, especially if Tristan Thompson ends up missing again. Again, don't have the injury report yet, but if TT's out, then Robert Williams immediately becomes a good play in tournaments. Don't know if I'd use him in cash because he is so dependent on those blocks and those steals, but tournaments, not going to find much higher of a ceiling. Clint Capella, minutes have been dropping down. Ever since the coaching change, he's been getting right around 25 to 28 minutes. And yes, he was out for a little while. Maybe they're bringing him back slowly, but I'm still expecting them to run a little bit more. Collins at the 5. Collins is a bit more of their future. He's been playing fantastic recently. So they're going to roll him out of the 5 at decent, especially going up against a team like the Clippers, who Zubac's not a great player at the 5. They aren't going to need his height. They aren't going to need his rebounding as much. So they'll roll Collins a little bit at the 5, go with a little bit smaller lineup, I think a decent amount during the game. So he's a guy that I just don't think ends up making my builds. Turner, same thing, like Sabonis, LeVert. There's too many mouths to feed. Sabonis, Brogdon, LeVert, all taking up a ton of usage for Indy. So Turner, yes, he can get there. He can knock down a few threes. He can get some blocks and steals. He definitely still has a ceiling, but not sure he's the guy that I want to end up using. Podol, with DeRozan back in, hurts his usage a little bit, even though it's a matchup versus Charlotte. Very good one. Don't know if he'll end up making my builds. Horford, multipliers too low. Brolo, I don't mind in tournaments. Without Giannis in there, Brolo can end up with a few blocks and steals on any game, but he can end up with a few extra three-pointers, which, again, at a 1.75x multiplier, an extra 2 3-pointers is the equivalent of an extra 12, 13 points. So if he gets hot from beyond the arc, which he absolutely can do in any given matchup, he can end up crushing this price tag. Same thing with Markkanen. Collins, his multiplier is probably too low. He can absolutely crush in any matchup, but doubt it. Tice, he can get 40, 45 points, but he's really not offering you a ton of ceiling. Like, if he gets 45 points, that's a good game. He's at 75, but that's his 95th, 97th percentile outcome. Realistically, we can see here, RG projections, his 80th percentile outcome is 58 points, and that's probably not going to get done. That won't kill you in tournaments, but it's probably not going to get it done. There's too many other guys that I think can end up hitting a significantly higher ceiling. We look at this, just the top 7 guys at center position where you only get one of them. All these guys have 80th percentile outcomes of 60 or more. After that, you still have Clint Capella, you still have Turner, you still have Podol. All these guys going to end up getting even Brolo. So I don't think that Collins is going to be making the mix. Center is pretty simple for me. It's these guys. Maybe Robert Williams if TT misses. That's pretty much it. Moving on over to forward, we definitely have some more plays. So the absolute top play on the entire slate without Giannis on it is Middleton. Use him in cash. Absolutely use him in cash. I know they had that little run while Giannis was out last time where he just did not play well. He also had a run while Giannis was out last time where he played fantastic. It's been a little bit all over the board, but we expect running court IQ numbers. He's going to have a large point per minute boost. He's going to play a bunch of minutes. Matchup versus Indy isn't bad, and he's got a 1.4x multiplier. You play him in cash. Tournaments, whole different story. I think that in tournaments, you have to play at least one Milwaukee guy in every single lineup. Even if it ends up being a blowout, the multipliers are too high. You have Middleton at 1.4. You have Brolo at 1.75. You have Portis, I think, at like 1.8. You have Drew Holiday, I think, at 1.4, 1.5. So you have to play one of these Milwaukee guys, I think, in every single tournament lineup, because unless boatloads of other guys end up going absolutely crazy, you're not going to take down a tournament without one of them. So Middleton, absolutely fantastic option in cash, the top option in cash. In tournament, still a very good option. We have Tatum and we have Brown going up against Memphis, 1.2 and 1.3x multiplier. Brown's been a lot better recently, but I think he used both of them in cash. Like, as of right now, their multipliers are too low. Usage bump should be there without Kemba in there. I mean, Smart can take away a little bit, but Tatum and Brown should end up crushing. I think the smart move in tournaments is use one or the other. Don't use both. But for cash, you absolutely use both of them. I think Christian Wood, currently in my cash game core. I'm not sure about Wall or Oladipo status. Second in a back-to-back, we'll be getting the injury report fairly soon, within about an hour, I believe. And if they're both out, like, I'm worried a little bit about his minutes. Obviously, he had that injury. He was out for a long time. Brought him back first game a little bit slow, but then played 36 in the last game. We could see if he's going to play mid-30s minutes, especially without Wall or Oladipo, huge usage bump, and Christian Wood can end up crushing at 1.3x. Still figuring out exactly what I want to do in tournaments or in cash, but in tournaments, he will be in play regardless, especially if he ends up, like, if we get the word that he will not be limited for minutes. Asking own Portis in play only if he starts. Let me look up Portis' multiplier. Portis' multiplier is 1.75. If he starts, then yeah, that's probably where I'm considering him. If he doesn't end up starting, then I think you can still consider him in tournaments. Massive point per minute guy. If he gets extra run, like, there's a chance that he doesn't end up starting. He gets a lot of that usage off the second unit, and then he gets extended run in the case of a blowout. So you kind of have to build your lineups accordingly. Like, in lineups where you're using Portis, if he's not starting, then I don't think you use both Middleton and Drew, because it's likely a blowout and only one of them ends up getting there. But you can use Portis even if he's not starting, even if you're not expecting a blowout. It can happen just because he can produce such a high level on a point per minute basis. But we'll know what the starting lineup is before. And Superdraft, late swap, you don't have to worry about 2v2 swaps. You don't have to worry about that at all, because you can swap any guy for any guy as long as they're the same position. It's all based on multipliers, so no salary cap, no 2v2, like figuring out what salary fits, like who's the best direct pivot if you only have one player to go. All that stuff, not applicable over on Superdraft, because you can swap any guy for any guy at the same position. You can do mass player swap. You can go into each lineup. You can make adjustments later on in the night based on how much room you have to make up. So absolutely love that system. Makes things so much easier. I just like the fact that I can do it all from my phone, like at a bar or at my house. I don't have to walk up, go over to my laptop, look it through everything. I can just see, let's say, let me look at the time of the games. All right, let's say Atlanta versus the Clippers. Let's say that Kawhi gets ruled out or Paul George gets ruled out. I can just mass swap onto the other. If I already have them in my lineup, then I can mass swap over to John Collins. Like, it's that simple. I don't have to look at things because I know all those guys are in play. If for some reason Gobert gets ruled out and I have him into some of my lineups, then I can mass swap over to Valanciunas, knowing that I'll go through because you only have one center you can play and they're both center eligible. So it makes it real simple if he gets ruled out and we don't have that news before the game starts. Same thing like Boston. If Tatum or Brown gets ruled out, you can just mass swap over to the other one. Really simple. So it makes things super easy. All you have to do, have the RG alerts on. Once you get an alert, hey, this person's out, you immediately just hop on, global player swap, boom, easy across the board. Takes 2 to 5 seconds if you are quick with your hands, and boom, it's done. But Forward, those guys, Christian Wood, all very much in place. A bonus. Again, plan on using him at center, but there's a few different ways you can do this because both Tatum and Brown are both forward and guard eligible. So if you don't like some of the guard plays I'm about to mention, then you can go with them. Keldon Johnson, guy that's all over the board. We look at him, of all these guys, all these top 20 guys, I think, outside of Robert Williams, he has the lowest floor because he can just be out there, not do a ton. But his ceiling is massive. We've seen him put up 50-point games before. Matchup versus Charlotte, I think there's a spot, even with everyone healthy, I'm still expecting him to play 30-plus minutes. And in that time frame, he can crush. It's very volatile. Only a guy that I want to use for tournaments, but very much a guy that's in play. PJ Washington, we've seen him do fantastic things. We've seen him do terrible things. He's crushed my hopes and dreams multiple times before while I'm playing him and while I'm not playing him. We look at his game log kind of all over the map, 13, 28, 17, 20, 28, 41, 38, 9, 66. That's his last 7 or so games. He's been all over the map. Without LaMelo in there, it should give an increase to him. His multiplier is probably too high at 1.6, considering his ceiling on any given night. Him, Gordon Hayward, who should get a usage bump without LaMelo in there. We remember that Hayward was absolutely crushing for a while LaMelo was still coming off the bench. He had that streak where he was putting up 47, then 61, then 43, then 20, then 43, then 37, then 50, then 57. Like, he's got a massive, massive ceiling with his multiplier. San Antonio, not a bad matchup for anyone. Gordon Hayward's multiplier is too high. Over on DraftKings and FanDuel, his price is too low. There has to be there's a hole in usage without LaMelo in there, and Hayward is the most likely guy to fill it, but even Graham, Rozier, both those guys will end up with an increase. We'll get to them when we get over to guard, but Charlotte, I think that using one of the Charlotte guys is a smart move, and Hayward, I think, is the best option. Kawhi, Paul George, like, obviously prefer Kawhi. Both of them can have a big outing. It's match versus Atlanta, not great defensively, runs at a decent pace. Both of them are very much in play. Daniel House right here, thing that largely depends on the status of Oladipo and Wall. As of right now, I really don't have much House in there, but his multiplier is high enough where if we know that he's going to get a boatload of minutes, if we find out that a bunch of Houston guys are sitting, Daniel House becomes in play. Levine, always in play, not an easy matchup, possibly a blowout. I think the line's currently at 9. Match versus Utah, always a potential blowout. But Levine is still a guy that can get it done versus anyone, even in a tough matchup. He's in play for tournaments. DeRozan, 1.3x multiplier, not my favorite play, but a guy that can go for 50 points. SGA, we don't know the status of him. If he's out, then that immediately gives an upgrade to a lot of these OKC guys. I'll pull up the OKC guys right now just because, you know what, that's what I feel like doing. So we're moving on over here. We're going to OKC. We see SGA with the biggest projection, but he's at a low multiplier. If he's out, then it doesn't mean a ton of extra minutes for Roby, but Dort could potentially get a huge boost. Maldon could get a huge boost. Jerome, huge boost, because there's a lot of usage to go around, and there's a lot of minutes to go around. Even Horford gets a pretty big boost. He might come into my tournament builds if SGA is out, just because of his huge per minute basis boost, even though they're going to give Moses Brown and they're going to give Roby some run because they're trying to play their young guys. Horford, I would still assume, gets close to 30 minutes, and if he does, then he can crush on that per minute basis, and he's going to get a ton of extra usage. So that's the OKC situation. We have literally 3 main situations we have to pay attention to there, or 4 that we have to pay attention to because they there's just a hole in usage. SGA's out, huge hole in usage. With LaMelo out, huge hole in usage. If Wall and Oladipo sit out, Porter comes back into our life. Christian Wood, if he plays a bunch of minutes, comes back into our life. So there's a lot of things to consider on today's slate. It's a little bit more complicated than most, but it just gives you more options. So you don't need to hammer as much the 70-80% owned guys. Again, still think you have Middleton or Drew Holiday in every single lineup, one of them in every single lineup, both of them in cash. But keep looking down here, like Batum, no. Kyle Anderson, not getting the same minutes he was before. OG's fine, but not with everyone else healthy. All these guys, I think Siakam's still in play, can still put up 50 points. Matchup versus Houston playing at a fast pace, not great defensively. Siakam, we have a low projection on him, but I still think but he is viable for tournaments. Getting lower than this, guys just don't stick out unless injuries happen. Like with Horford. If SGA ends up missing, Horford will immediately get bust. You can kind of go off of RG projections and just multiply it by the multiplier in your head, or you can create a little spreadsheet like this that I have. Hopefully we'll have them up in lineup HQ at some point, but we're working on that. Let's move on over to guard. Very clearly, first guard you want in your lineups for cash, Drew Holiday. 1.5x multiplier. Currently have him projected for 41 points, I believe. And that could be a low projection. Multiplier is far too high. He'll play 35 to 40 minutes if this game ends up staying close. If he plays that without Giannis in there, the increase in usage should end up with 40 to 50 to 60 points potentially. He can get it done if he's in the game for a long time. Fast-paced matchup should be pretty decent for him. He should crush. Lock him in to your cash games. Play a lot of them in tournaments. Play either him or Middleton. You can play both, but if you're playing both, maybe bring it back with Sabonis or Brogdon. But Holiday, clear top option on the entire slate. Anthony Edwards been crushing recently. Volume has been through the roof with him. Still not making shots at a great rate, but he is chucking. Looking at his last 4 games, 18 shot attempts, 31 shot attempts, 22 shot attempts, 24 shot attempts. If he gets hot shooting, he can put up 60 points. He did it against Phoenix. Magic versus OKC, not a great team. He can absolutely destroy, and he's giving you a pretty nice floor. He hasn't had less than 36 points in any of his last 6 games. So he's a guy that I plan on using a lot in tournaments, a lot all over the place at this multiplier, just because I know I'm going to get probably at least 50 points out of him. I have a shot at 80. So Anthony Edwards, a guy that I plan on using a lot. Rubio, we look at his ceiling projection here, pretty high, but most of the time he's just not going to get it done. It's that simple. He's strictly in play for tournaments, and he's not even a guy I want to use a ton of tournaments. Cat and Edwards are taking up too much usage in that lineup. Not worth it for me. Trae Young, probably a guy I'll end up using in cash. Just that simple, like 1.25x multiplier is too high for him. My cash game lineup likely going to be Holiday, Trae, Brown or Tatum at the guard, and then the other one at the forward position, Middleton, Sabonis at the center, and then I'll figure out maybe Christian Wood at the other forward spot. But that's like my main cash game staples. The ones that will not change throughout the course of the day are Drew Holiday, Middleton, Brown, and Tatum. Probably Sabonis too, but any number of things can get Sabonis out there. But your main core plays for cash are the 2 Boston players and the 2 main Milwaukee players. Just too high of a multiplier. You lock them into cash, and then you can figure out your build throughout the day based on what ends up happening. Like I said, you could throw Zubac in, you could throw Sabonis in, you could throw Christian Wood in. You can do a lot of different things, but the ones you want to have, that you absolutely want to have, are the 2 Milwaukee guys and probably the 2 Boston guys. We keep looking at guards here. We got Brogdon. His usage has gone down with LeVert in there. Like, there's too many mouths to feed. He's still fine. He can still have a big game any given night, but most likely he's going to end up right around 35 to 40 points. 1.45x multiplier, probably not going to get you there in tournaments. Definitely not going to get you there in cash, I don't think. So he's kind of off the board for me. Van Vliet can get hot shooting down the arc. 1.3 is a little bit low of a multiplier, but a fast-paced matchup versus Houston. He's a guy that can play in tournaments. Edwards, I don't mind for cash or tournaments, mostly tournaments, just because of the cash game core I have right now. But again, very much in play. Lowry, multiplier is a little bit low for what he does, but still in play. Graham and Rozier are the interesting ones. So I'm actually going to pull up quarter IQ because why not? I've got time. I can do anything I want. I'm an adult. But Graham should be playing 30 minutes now. He's got at a 1.6x multiplier or 1.65x multiplier. We run court IQ without LaMelo on the floor, and let's see what we end up getting. I'm doing it on the other screen. Sorry you can't see, but I'll tell you. So per minute basis, Graham gets 0.05 boost. Rozier actually gets no boost, but gets a 1% boost in usage. Hayward gets a plus 0.03 per minute bump. The main thing with Graham and Rozier is without LaMelo, they're going to play more minutes. And so at these multipliers, we saw Rozier go multiple times for a 45, a 50-point game. He can shoot. He's one of the better 3-point shooters in the league. Been a little bit cold recently, but still been putting up 37, 37, 32. Had a 48 not too long ago. Had multiple 50-point games in a row back in late February, 50, 53, 57, 46. So he was crushing for a little bit when he was chucking. And we don't know for certain that he's not going to go back to putting up 20 shot attempts a game. If he does, absolute lock and load. Should end up getting there, but Graham could end up taking over. The most interesting guy, and I think probably the best tournament play on the slate, is DiVincenzo. Talked with Will, shout out to Will, last night on the morning grind. DiVincenzo has just been absolutely balling lately. Last 4 games, 40, 45, 31, 34. Putting up between 8 and 16 shot attempts per game during that time frame. Without Giannis in there, I expect it to go up. His multiplier is far too high, and everyone's going to be on Drew and on Middleton. So I think DiVincenzo is the pivot. You get a ton of leverage. It's match versus Indy, again, not bad. And we don't know if he's going to end up taking up a ton of shots, but I can kind of suspect that he will. So I'm probably going to end up in tournaments 45, 50% DiVincenzo at this moment right now is kind of my plan. Multiplier is just far too high. He's been playing far too well recently. DiVincenzo is a fantastic play. Moving on down, we got DeRozan, 1.3x multiplier, not bad. Morant, been terrible recently, but he's also been shooting horrible. Match versus Boston, not really the get right spot, but I'm going to sprinkle him in tournaments because one of these days he's going to go back to the 50-point outings that he was putting up before. Like, he's just been a little bit off and shooting a little bit off. Like, a lot of his potential assists haven't ended up paying off, but he definitely has 50-point ceiling. Before the multiplier, 1.4x multiplier, boom, gives him a massive ceiling. Rubio, I already talked about him. Donovan Mitchell, 1.15x multiplier, not high enough for me. Like, unless Gobert ends up getting ruled out, probably not going to use Donovan Mitchell. I already talked about Keldon Johnson, Levine, Conley, probably not. DeJounte Murray's fine. Wall, I don't think he's going to play. White, not worth it because everyone's playing on the team. LeVert, too many mouths to feed. SGA may or may end up not playing, but he's also a low multiplier. Marcus Smart, I think, is worth some consideration. We know he's going to get a little bit of extra run without Kemba in there. He'll run the point, potential boost to usage, 1.55x multiplier. Guy that you can use as a pivot off of Jaylen Brown or Tatum, and you can get some leverage there, but offers you a pretty high ceiling. He can put up 50 fantasy point outing at any given time. He can get stats, or he can those peripheral stats, blocks and steals all over the place. He can pop threes. So he's a guy that offers you a pretty high ceiling that I don't think is going to come in a ton of ownership. So that's pretty much it, guys. Any questions, go ahead and drop in the chat. We're getting out of here soon if you guys don't have any, but I'll sit here and answer any ones that you need me to. But we go down further and we just don't see him. I mean, Satoransky is getting 30 minutes, but it's matching versus Utah. He is a high multiplier. Good call, Adam. Almost forgot to talk about it. What do you think about Porter, if no Wall or Oladipo? Thanks. Let me grab up his multiplier here. Kevin Porter, you see we have him projected for very little, but if those guys are ruled out, 1.35x multiplier, not high enough. Porter, with all those guys earlier, he was crushing. He was absolutely crushing. We look at his game log. Those games where Oladipo, actually just those games when Wall were out, 42, 47, 23, 46, 46. Minutes got all the way down to 9.7 when Wall came back and 19.75. Both those guys are ruled out. He's probably going to play 35 minutes. At that projection, he's going to average probably 1 to 1.5 fantasy points per minute. So at 1.35x multiplier, don't think he's going to be as heavily owned as he should be. But we just need to wait on that news. It should be coming out in a half hour. But both those guys being out, absolutely have some interest in playing him. Definitely a fantastic tournament play. And if Christian Wood gets ruled out for some reason too, it wouldn't surprise me. Houston's a mess right now, and I don't know what they're doing half the time. Wouldn't surprise me if they just decide to rule him out on a second note of back-to-back, and then becomes absolutely the Kevin Porter show. Kenyon Martin Jr., ends up playing a boatload of minutes, and at his multiplier, let's see, I think they might have dropped it over on Superdraft a little bit too much. Let me pull up forward here, find him. Cody Martin, no. Caleb Martin, no. Kenyon Martin, yes. We currently don't have a projection for him because he might not end up playing, but 1.45x multiplier, probably too low for me. He still might be in playing tournaments. I'm not going to argue against it, but more than likely you're going with guys like House at a 1.9x multiplier. It just all depends on who ends up playing. But that's pretty much the entire show, guys. Again, get signed up using the promo code Grinders. Get $150 in Superdraft cash if you deposit 150 more, or they'll match it up to $50. But I suggest going the full amount, get in there, play on it. It's a fantastic site. I absolutely love it. I'll be on there tonight. I've given you all the information. In cash, play the Boston guys, play the Milwaukee guys, probably play Sabonis, maybe play Zubac. In tournaments, play all these guys in green. You can go back and rewatch the show. You can just pause this spot right here, see the guys that I have highlighted, see the guys I have highlighted here, see all the guys I plan on playing. Again, Robert Williams, depends on the TT news, could end up being in play, definitely has some upside. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the slate, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back again, I believe, on Wednesday, breaking down the Super Draft slate. Get in there tonight. Get ready for some bases ball. I think we're, 10 days away? Maybe 9 days away. I'm excited for baseball. I love baseball. Baseball is probably my favorite DFS sport. But get signed up. I'm out of here. See you, kids.